Yeah, I'm Chris Ritson. I'm Senior Risk Consultant here at Safran, and I'm going to be talking about the product updates. Could you just confirm that you can see the screen share? Is that coming through?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Nicely.
So I'm going to hide my webcam. Okay, so
The audience probably wants to see you, Chris, but up to you.
oh, did my camera just go off?
No, it didn't, but I think it's better if we see you, Chris.
Oh, I didn't think I turned it off.
Yeah, we can see your webcam and we can see your slides. I think it's great just like that.
Yeah, okay, cool. So just a little note, I did actually see a little flurry of questions. There was maybe 5 or 6 questions that came in for Donna right at the last moment there. So they didn't quite get passed on to you guys in that last minute or so. So apologies, but we'll get through and answer all the questions if we haven't managed to do it in the live session in the Q&A. Okay, so now I'm here to deliver the product updates for both Safran Risk and Safran Risk Manager on behalf of the developers. And hopefully we're going to be whetting your appetite for what's coming later this year. And also, just as Mark said just then, to encourage your continued engagement to help us prioritize new developments. So the slide's going to work. Are they? Okay, so just in case anybody missed the various emails that's been sent out since the end of last year, we've released version 21.1, and it's just worth reflecting on this. So first of all, the elephant in the room is that there's this new numbering convention. So we haven't skipped versions, but instead all our products now contain the year of the version's initial release. So 2021.1, if you will. Now, it's worth pointing out that this was our largest ever single update. And there's too many items to list or detail here, but the highlights actually are available for you to watch in a 30-minute video with our very own CTO, Glenn Gerard. You'll be able to find that on our YouTube channel, and it covers those 6 main themes that you can see on screen now. I'll be coming back to some of those shortly. But before I look at those, some of you may have seen that our latest build released actually just last week, actually, and it allows you to select your preferred default settings for additional risk mappings to impact either in series or in parallel to one another. And for me personally, this is another welcome addition that I'm glad to see. So I'm going to take a quick look at why. So if we take just a single activity with some estimating uncertainty as being the anticipated natural variation and how long a task may take to complete, we apply risks A and B from our risk register, and they've just got some simple triangular distributions like this, and they're occurring in series to one another. Then this provides a theoretical maximum amount of time that this task could take to complete if we're unlucky enough for both risks to not only happen at the same time, but also manifest at their worst case extremes. But if we'd instructed the Monte Carlo simulation to allow these risk events to occur in parallel to one another, then the maximum possible delay is reduced. So you can imagine that had this been on a real life project, there could easily have been more than 2 risks mapped to like that same activity. So that would have amplified the effect further. Now, this is just modeling theory. So a seasoned analyst would recognize the importance of selecting the correct behavior that they need to see in their project risk model. And they'd spend quite a lot of time checking and changing these settings as appropriate. Now, in my experience on civil engineering projects, risk events do tend to occur in parallel, not in series. So being able to manually select a default preference for all new mappings is going to be quite a big time saver for you, being able to sort of set that as a default now. This is where you'll find it on the risk mappings tab. The column at the bottom labeled SP is where you manually edit the field. But if you want to change the default, then you just click this options cog in the top right corner, and now you'll reveal a drop down and you can select your preference there. Now, If you're not yet a seasoned analyst and you're thinking, I understand the principle, but is it really that big of a deal? Then let me give you two quick examples of why these modeling principles can really matter. So first, if all your risks were set to impact in series, then this clearly over-exaggerates the effect that foreseeable risk may be having on your risk-adjusted project forecast. Now, hopefully that was already clear and that this is a bias that's worth filtering out so you don't provide misleading outputs. But the second reason is, or example, is more subtle, but it's just as bad. So what if your schedule activity calendars that have non-working periods inside them? So even slight delays may allow a critical activity to creep into one of these work embargo periods. And that could last for several days, weeks, or maybe months. So depending on the nature of the work and the associated constraints. So every time you accidentally model risk events impacting in series, you might be slipping your simulated critical path unnecessarily into those significant delays. And again, this could make for quite alarmist reporting. So just a quick tip to anyone that's new to all this and you're wondering how to enhance your QSRA output validity and credibility, then I recommend searching for these gaps in your distribution outputs. Much harder to detect if you routinely sort of rely on the S-curves as your main reporting output. But here there's a visual cue that there's a non-working period in effect, and it might be worth investigating that, just double checking that it's supposed to be there. Remark on this to stakeholders, elaborate the story, fill in the detail for them. And of course, the advantage of Safran Risk at this point is that you can then edit the activity calendars directly without needing to re-import a new version of the schedule. So if you wanted to run a what-if scenario, where you could challenge the assumption that a non-working period needs to be there, then you can compare that output with the official output, demonstrate it as a potential opportunity, or simply remove it if it's a piece of legacy information that doesn't need to be there anymore. Okay, so before I move on to talk about the future of the product, I'd like to give a quick recap on what the main additions were from version 21.1, although I would still recommend watching Glenn's YouTube video. There's now the ability to switch databases. So if you want to keep your training or your sandbox separate from your formal customer submissions, or maybe you have lots of different customers, so you want to have a different database for each customer, that's now going to be a lot easier for you to administer. The import wizard is now easier to read and understand, although the old one is still available to you should you still need it. But simply select the schedule file that you want to import, select the planning units, and then is it days, hours, or minutes? Assign any user-defined fields that might contain the 3-point estimates for activity durations, if you have any, and then give this schedule a unique name within the database. And that's it, it's pretty simple. And as part of this new import process, warning messages will be flagged to your attention. So those can actually be saved to a text document, and they'll also automatically populate into a new column that can be filtered on later, so you can ensure that you don't lose track of them. Now, all of this should ensure enhanced quality of your schedule risk models. So for the rest, I'm just going to breeze through quite quickly, just starting with changes to the model inputs. So there's the new faster XER import. Aster Power Project is supported. Schedule column headers now have auto filters. Correlate activities durations to each other is now easier. User-defined columns for cost module. New cost module grouping options, so you can have multiple CBS, WBS, OBS, or organization breakdown structure for those that are not familiar with that one. You can have as many of those as you need. Impact activities independently can now be defined by correlation instead of a simple on-off toggle. Edit activity uncertainty direct from the risk mapping screen, so that's a popular improvement. Also, there's some extra activity information now available to you on that screen as well. The non-existence risk type has been added, which you can map to activities and things. And then there's the simpler interface for creating probabilistic branches. So those are all the main changes to the inputs. With regard to simulation and general settings, you can now assign enterprise fields to assist the organization of your schedules and projects within the database, because you might have hundreds of these things building up. So that's helpful. General simulation efficiencies have been achieved, so it runs faster. Multiple calendar risks can now be added to a single activity. And estimating uncertainty can now be blended from multiple sources within that same simulation. So you could have some activities using the risk drivers, but then you could use the more traditional 3-point estimates direct on the schedule for some of the others. And you can have a blended approach. And finally, looking at some of the outputs, activities can be highlighted when they're either completed or in progress or critical, and they can be highlighted during the during the step through, I guess. And extra columns have been added to the Microsoft Excel export, so you can now define your hours and days for absolute impacts, and also there's some columns there for overridden probabilities and impact distributions. And also going back to that OBS, WBS, CBS, you can now view and slice and dice and look at those different things on your cost model outputs as well. So that's quite clever. So as I mentioned earlier, please do check your spam and your junk email folders, because we sent out the email literally last week on Thursday, 5th of May. So maybe you have an IT department that installs all these things for you. So if you want to just double check that the version that you've currently got installed, then please open the burger menu in the top right-hand corner and select About Safran Risk. And then something like this will pop up and it will let you know what version you've got installed. And if you find that you've got an older version, for whatever reason can't find the email with the instructions and the hyperlink to download the upgrade, then please do contact support@safran.com, and they're going to ensure that all the contact details are all up to date and that you get what you need. Now, looking towards the horizon for what's coming next in version 22.1 later this year in Q4. So work has already begun to automatically generate reporting packs based on user parameters. This will also be able to target against your focus activities and milestones. So you'll simply select a target destination on your hard drive, and you can go do other things whilst it writes graphs and populates the report pack for you. We've also started adding improvements to our flagship feature, the sensitivity analysis by exclusion. So soon you'll be able to select things like WBS or a user-defined summary bar and start dates and discover what specifically affects them by a quantified amount. And as ever, quite a lot of work goes into these numerous items spread across the tool, and it isn't feasible to outline them all, but I will quickly summarize some of the highlights for the upcoming release. You'll be able to optionally filter out activities that are 100% complete from the schedule warnings. Integration with Asta Power Project will be enhanced. Float and activity calendar information will be added to the risk mappings summary screen. The cost tab will be able to show some p-value outputs similar to how we do it in the schedule. Will allow you to also add some additional top nodes to that cost model, give you some extra flexibility there. And then we've got that new reporting engine for auto-generating the charts into the external folders, as previously mentioned, allowing user-defined fields as a reference for multiple activity milestone target dates to start coming through into those graphical outputs, which will be taken advantage of via the automated reporting package. And then on outputs, duration and start dates added to the sensitivity analysis. Enable the sensitivity analysis to focus on the groupings, WBS, user-defined fields, etc. Send to distribution comparison will have like a new drop-down menu, so a few extra options to speed things up there. I think that would be welcome. Enhanced consistency and user control over the graphical outputs, so the dimensions, so make sure they're all the same sizes. add relationships, so be able to actually visualize those connections, those pathways on the critical path map, and some other visualization enhancements we're considering. And the ability to then print or plot or export those near critical paths that you've discovered via that tool. And then finally, the histograms will be able to come through into the distribution comparison. So you'll be able to sort of layer those up side by side, not just the S-curves. And then something else that I hope we'll be making available to you much sooner is our new bridging tool. So currently it's undergoing some testing. This is a Microsoft Excel macro that will partially convert large chunks of your OPRA models if you still have access to an OPRA license, and are checking Safran Risk out and comparing to an existing model to see how it would look and behave in the Safran environment. That will be a free download, and we'll put it up on the website support portal. So please do log on to that from time to time, check out for the latest tools, FAQs, and community discussions on our website forums, where we've already actually received about 40 proposals for improving Safran Risk. This is really appreciated. However, to really help us take this a bit further, what I'd encourage everybody in the risk community to do is actually to read these suggestions for yourselves and then lend their vote. Now, if you put a thumbs up on anything that you think would be really welcomed and benefit you, then this helps us to prioritize developments based on strength of evidence. So, for example, these votes and discussions will attract our attention more. Now, speaking of votes, it would be a missed opportunity for us to not consult the community whilst we have you all here. So in a moment, Mark is going to trigger a poll and confirm to me that it's up and running. But I'm curious to hear what you think should be our most pressing priority to tackle in 2023. So I'm just going to run through some of those options whilst Mark's getting that poll up. So I've got 8 items here.
Well, a question for you, Chris. So we've got 3 questions come in. I wonder if you want to pick them off now or save them till later.
You can ask me if you want, but if it's something that the developers need to answer, then they'll answer it directly in the chat.
Okay. Well, this one isn't. This is a generalist one. Okay. So, question: What would? Oh, sorry. This one here. How do you respond to project managers saying we don't have time for risk or the risk workshop or the risk process, or if we did add contingency, we will miss out on an opportunity? What do you say to those folks?
Well, I'm clearly going to be biased as a seasoned risk professional, but I think you have to meet them halfway. So you can't. It was kind of touched on an earlier presentation. There's no rights and wrongs, yeses or no's, goods and evils. So you have to kind of see what you can do and what's in the art of the possible in terms of what's going to be most useful to them. And if you focus on what's most useful to them, then you could jettison portions of the risk process perhaps to just focus on scenarios. If you can answer a particular scenario that helps a certain group of people and you show them the value of risk management or risk analysis in those more limited confined settings, that kind of frame that was spoken of by JD earlier, then I think you'll win over their hearts and minds, and then it becomes easier next time and then time after that. So that would be my advice, is to just focus on smaller things, targeted scenarios.
Okay. I'm going to throw you another one. If you can't answer it, that's fair enough, but tricky one. I guess you mentioned this. What would be good examples of forward-looking risk performance indicators as opposed to historical trend-based indicators?
Ooh, performance indicator. So my kind of thought here is that when you say performance, I mean, I'm not sure I would call them that. I might be mixing them up in my mind here a little bit, but I tend to think of key risk indicators. And for me, a key risk indicator is when you've done the the initial kind of sweep of risk management identification, etc., you've identified the key risks, and then you've identified the key control measures or the key mitigation measures that are going to help you control that in theory, because maybe it's a proposal, a mitigation proposal, and it's not known if it's going to work or not. So you then want to have measures on tracking those things in particular, and if you can link it up to a real life sensor somehow, and it's coming in through some dashboard somewhere in some control center on some of the larger projects, that's even better, because then you get that kind of early warning indication that one of the key measures might not be put into practice when the window of opportunity was most effective to do so, or maybe it's in place but it's shaking. It's like it's not working quite as intended. And so there's an early warning indicator there that if that goes down, that control measures goes down, then something that's being reported as a mitigated risk actually might be an unmitigated risk or a pre-mitigated risk. So that's the kind of thing that I would say was practical to do. But obviously every risk is unique in some capacity, so you'd have to drill down into the detail and the nuance to discern what that measure might be. So I don't think there's a catch-all. I think performance might be something else, but I don't have anything off the top of my mind to suggest there. But very targeted KRIs, key risk indicators, definitely believe in those.
Okay, all right. There's more questions in the same kind of category, in that they're quite gnarly, nitty-gritty, and I can tell, the people really want to get into a deep discussion. I'm just going to suggest put a kind of a placeholder for this, which is something I'm going to promote in about 5 minutes time is a little video clip which ends in being able to book a consultation with you, Chris. And I think some of the, so this is to the audience, if you think you've got one of these gnarly gritty, I really want to get into something, please use a facility I'm going to show you in a minute, where you can see a short video of Chris talking about various different things, but also then book a consultation with Chris. I think that is the best way, because sometimes they're really good questions, but they're not like 30-second responses. With that, Chris, do you mind if I go ahead and push on and post the poll you'd asked me to?
Yeah, go for it. Shall I read out the 8 items?
No, let me do it, because I'm not sure if you can see it, but I had to take your 8 into 2 blocks of 4, because you can't put questions on a single poll.
Sorry.
So to the audience,
got greedy.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Here's a question for you. We're keen to understand from you what other improvements to Safran Risk would be really valuable to you. It's about value and valuable to you. So there's 4 here. Just select one if you don't mind. Otherwise, if we get everybody selecting everything, it won't be as valuable to us. So we've been a bit hard on you and asking you just to pick your most valuable. Then there's going to be another 4 in the second question, and we'll use your information. It kind of guides us. We're always keen to get a bit of a steer from you. It's all about collaborating together, right, as a community. Brilliant. Lots of votes pouring in. I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds. Get the last of you to squeeze 8 votes. Yeah, last. Oh, late rush. I'm going to close it there. So there we go, and share the results. I don't know if you can see it, Chris. Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Oh, I love this one. Right. Okay. So scheduled check diagnostics, getting them easing better and getting them trackability. 27% thought that was pretty good. Linking risk to change control. I know it's one of your favorites, Chris, because everything's about change control, right? That's where the magic happens, being able to control that properly. No surprises here. This is an ongoing, religious discussion, isn't it? The difference between, do you do your QSRA work at the detailed level or a rolled up level? So therefore the ability to go from detailed to rolled up quickly and easily seems like it's very popular, 36%. Not so much people saying resource risk type. Okay, 5% was the last category. Okay, I'm going to hide those results, move straight on to the next one. Give me a moment. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Boom. Go. Can you read them, Chris? Do you see these questions, Chris?
I've got a really truncated little image of it.
Okay. All right. So for you and the audience, another 4 categories that you might think would be good enhancement features for Safran Risk. Easier to model conditional branches and delay penalties. So some people using conditional branching, some people say they're still not as easy as they'd like. Maybe that's a big thing for you. Enhanced scatter plot functionality. Interestingly, we've had a couple of questions from the audience about this. I think Sam's presentation has really excited people with that 3D modeling stuff. There's some really cool things you can do with scatter plot. Maybe
I do like that.
Yeah, me too. It's so good. I like this one. Pinpoint schedule changes between versions. And lastly, mitigation optimization according to resource capabilities. Oh, that's a good one. So what are your mitigation options and how do you prioritize against limited resources? Good one. Okay.
So I think people are getting more than one vote here, aren't they?
Oh, do you know what? I hadn't. Oh, yeah.
I'm just seeing the numbers.
Yeah, I missed that one. Well, okay. Fill your boots, everybody. Let us know what you think. Okay, it's starting to run out there. Okay, we have to interpret the results differently. I'm going to close the poll now. I'm going to share the results. So it's the patterns here we're looking for, I think, more. Okay, so can you read them? Bottom 2. So big swings for pinpoint schedule changes between versions. Okay, that's good to know. That is important. We thought it was. Mitigation optimization according to resource capabilities, pretty popular. Okay, well, Sam will be disappointed. Enhanced scatter plot functionality, not such a big thing. Maybe integrated cost and schedule. Anyway, doesn't matter. And then easier to model conditional branching. Yeah, good third of people wanted.
I think that one's going to grow in popularity as people get more comfortable with the concept. But yeah.
So
interesting.
There we go. Hi, those results. Anything else, or do you want to talk more?
No, I've got more slides, so I better crack on. So, okay, so we're just going to switch gears now, and because it's going to be really unhelpful to ignore the latest product, Safran Risk Manager, SRM. So that also now has community forums up and running. So again, I encourage people to get involved there. But I thought I'd just revisit this slide that Mark Turner had up on his Tuesday presentation, because it gives an impression of just how successful SRM has been for us since we launched it just over a year ago. And I've been hearing great feedback even just today. But it's great to see not just the geographic spread, but the diversity of interests from different sectors. They needed a risk management tool like SRM, and it focuses on their needs of different roles in a team, needing risk management to do different things for them, to help them keep the risk management process energized and interesting. So that's going to be really useful for framing my next slide. So our initial customers have given clear feedback on what they most need to see. And in some cases, we were able to implement these within weeks, in some cases just days, much to their delight. So that's really good. But we felt many of the requests were actually more effectively served by waiting for a more powerful architecture upgrade to take place first. So that's where we prioritized our efforts. And we've already successfully deployed .NET 6 onto our customers' cloud servers without issue or disruption back in March. And this has enabled preparations of the database schema to accommodate the most requested and impactful new features that tend to cluster around the themes of visualization, reporting. But essentially, what we're talking about is more trending, more archiving, more lessons learned feedback loops, which all taken together increases the potential for using SRM as a full enterprise solution, not just a kind of project portfolio program type situation. But the 22.1 upgrade allows us to explore more compelling graphics and interfaces. This will enable new ways for you to engage your project teams in connecting risks with decisions and objectives. So we'll be looking at a facilitation assistant, automating more internal communications and notifications, further enhancements to the existing reports, third-party integrations via APIs and things. And again, these customer-suggested improvements further evidence how obsolete spreadsheets have become for the majority of businesses when they're running their risk frameworks. And once we've tackled these most pressing considerations from our early customer feedback, and we've actually delivered them later this year, we can then take our attention to some of our own internal aspirations, supporting our overarching vision for helping organizations to build intelligent risk-taking cultures. So in 2023, we'll be introducing new modules or enhancing existing ones that, broadly speaking, helps teams to establish and visualize relationships and how these connect to decision making. So giving you greater control over the GUI, customizing what you want, what you need to see and to show others. Integration of the strategic decision agenda into the risk management workflow. New tools to help you aggregate and escalate risk across portfolios of projects. Enhancements to the existing KDEC module, deepening the relationship between constraints, assumptions, and change management and your risk register. And of course, we'll continue to develop improvements to the way that SRM seamlessly integrates with our other products. So that's the end of the session, but there is a bonus poll if you want to bring it up, Mark, if there's time for it, I don't know, but it's a kind of bonus curiosity question from me. So just thinking about things at a much higher level, what theme do you believe will be most important to you within the next few years? If you could just select one, that would be really helpful. So Mark, are you able to bring that poll up?
It's up, Chris. Maybe you can't see it. Yeah. So again, please select one theme that will be important to you in the next 2 to 5 years. Assistance with rapid decision making, or facilitation and collaboration tools, or some kind of new scope-based planning and forecasting methods, just something really radically new, or more focus on the value chain, more value chain insights across supply chains. Might be important to you if you're working in a very sort of interconnected project delivery environment with many, many different contractors and subcontractors, for example. Lots of responses come in very quickly. Okay, they've slowed down. I'm going to pause it there and share the results. If you can't see it, okay, 32% voted for assistance with rapid decision making, 27% for facilitation and collaboration tools, pretty even. New scope-based planning and forecasting methods, yep, 32%. Not so much, only 9% greater value chain insights across supply chains.
Interesting. So pretty equal on those three then.
Yes, yes. And well, we'll talk offline because we're very interested in all of those, but more of that later. Okay, I'll hide those results. Back to you, Chris.
Okay, back to the last slides then. So, well, I hope that's given you some food for thought. It certainly has for me. But we're about to head into the next comfort break. So I and the team here will continue to respond to any additional questions in the GoToWebinar interface. Of course, if we're being flooded with inquiries, then it might take us a little longer, but we will get back to you. So thank you for your patience. But I hope this presentation has given you a good taste of what's coming up next. And of course, if you want to reach out and speak to any of us for demonstrations or engage us on the website chat forums, we'd be delighted to work with you and listen to what you're looking for. So thanks for listening, and just make sure that you tune into the next session from Alino, where they'll be taking us beyond the P dates, because it's an absolute cracker. I've seen it before, it's wonderful.